Hey everybody, JJ here. Just coming back from the undercover police officer picnic. And since I had this facial hair going on for that event, I figured what better time to talk about one of my favorite bands and another one of my favorite albums. You can tell from the title that this video is about Motorhead, Lemmy in particular, and Phil Taylor too. Amazing drummer. Mickey D as well, another amazing drummer. But specifically, the album, which is everyone's favorite Motorhead album, Ace of Spades. And, in hindsight, what a poor attempt at a Lemmy impersonation. I got the facial hair going on, but, there's no mole. I didn't wear mirrored sunglasses. I washed my hair. I did it all wrong, but at least I wore all black, so good enough. Just like the rest of my videos, good enough. Anyway, to chat a little bit about Motorhead, they need no introduction to anybody that's listened to music in the last 40 years. Motorhead is one of those bands that even somebody that doesn't know their music can 100% recognize the logo, from a t-shirt. There's other bands, the Misfits, Metallica, the logo and certain things are almost kind of bigger than the band is. And that's a pretty cool feat to ever achieve. And those are the kinds of things that basically, guarantee that bands will live on long past, the members being alive, which is the case with Motorhead. The original, for those who don't know, the original lineup now is everyone is dead. And that happens when you live the lifestyle that those guys chose to live. And frankly, I think it's a miracle that any of them, made it into their golden years. But we were lucky to have the guys in the band for as long as they were around, and to stay as busy as they were. Motorhead kept going up until the very end when Lemmy was too ill to keep performing, and that's a real testament to the love that they had for music and just the lifestyle. If you're gonna ever look at somebody that was like the epitome of a rock and roll lifestyle, I don't think you could ever find somebody that lived that truth more than Lemmy, and probably the other guys too. But Lemmy was definitely more in the spotlight for that. So I can't honestly remember my kind of real introduction to Motorhead. Likely it was through I used to watch a music video show. And if I had to think back, I would probably guess seeing the Ace of Spades music video. That left a huge impression on me, especially with Phil Taylor. At the time, he's using a big double bass kit, and he had these very cool cutouts on his bass drums. They made it look like the open mouth of a shark, or some sharp-toothed fish, anyways. But it was, very impressionable. I might have been, I don't know, I was getting into that music when I was, 8 or 9, maybe 10 years old, something like that. And then they had released an album around that time. It was called 1916 was the album. And that was kind of like, their, not the swan song to the 80s and 90s rock and roll, but it was definitely kind of one of those albums that was a last of its kind, more or less. Grunge was taking over at that time, and Motorhead were kind of the stalwarts, or the old guard of rock and roll. And so yeah, I'd gotten some exposure just through the radio, some music videos, things like that. And then I started to look and kind of investigate the band more, and Metallica is and was my favorite band, and they were obviously hugely influenced by Metallica, especially Lars. And so me being such a fan of Lars, it kind of piqued my curiosity into what he saw with Motorhead, and like what he loved about the band. And so, just through time, like, I borrowed some records and, things like that from people that had it. Motorhead albums, some friends that had it, and some older friends of my brother's and things like that, and got exposed to a bit of the other songs and albums that they had, the Overkill album, stuff like that. And yeah, just a hugely influential band. To me, and it was the most influence I took from them was just like the steadfastness and like the dedication to what they were, and in a time where everyone, I'm talking about the early '90s, and in a time where everyone was changing their sound. Slayer was changing their sound. All these bands, Anthrax, like all these bands that were rooted in metal. And, we're getting away from the roots of what they came up with and kind of adapting to what was going on in the musical landscape at the time. And Motorhead never did that. Motorhead is, a faster, louder, maybe not louder, but as loud version of AC/DC. And some people criticize bands that don't evolve, and I've never been that. It's like, if the formula is there and the formula works and you like the formula, some bands can just hammer it out for 30, 40 years and still just keep going with it and still making great songs. And at the end of the day, that's kind of all that matters. If the songs are great, then who cares what style it is. And so yeah, getting into them more. The album, everyone has this album. Like, this is, you might not have the CD, but everyone's, or the record or whatever, but everybody's, aware of this album. I don't know how you couldn't be at this point. Like, if you're a fan of rock and roll music, this album is the one probably everybody kind of knows, just for the single, Ace of Spades. But going through the songs, like, this is there's some very cool elements on this album that dip into kind of like, Lemmy's early kind of blues influence, and, some of just like these different elements that aren't just all like speed and like, just kind of, volume and power and all that stuff. My favorite song off this album is actually "The Chase is Better Than the Catch." And it opens the album on side A. And I just love like the it's such a kind of a dirty song, and it really, really kind of fits the ethos of Motorhead. And some of the stuff hasn't aged that well, and some of the lyrics and the lifestyle these guys lived, it was a different time. But I've never been crazy into lyrics. It's kind of like they're there, and sometimes I pay attention to them. Other times it's just the cadence of the vocals and, the melodic content that I'm attracted to more than what the song is actually about. And so yeah, "The Chase is Better Than the Catch" is really cool, kind of like a bluesy, like a louder, a ZZ Top kind of thing, or something. It might be an odd reference, but those guys all had roots in kind of the same music coming up. And so yeah, it's very apparent in that. And then, other classics, "Love Me Like a Reptile," "Live to Win" is awesome. "Fast and Loose" is a killer song too. Jailbait's on this one. But yeah, the one everyone kind of knows about this is Ace of Spades. And if I was going to recommend a song to check out, I think that one's the most easily accessible off this album. But "The Chase is Better Than the Catch" is a really cool, kind of a dark, just a dark take on it. It has something going on to it that just kind of, has a darker feel to it. And it's really, really cool. But yeah, the influence that this band has, I love all the songs, I love all the things, but the biggest thing I've taken away from Motorhead, and I've kind of carried this with me, is, and I think other bands, I see it in Metallica, and I see it in a handful of other bands. It's just, at the end of the day, music and what you're doing is more about pleasing yourself and, making things that are gratifying for yourself. And as soon as you start, trying to please other people and listen to outside influences and stuff like that, you start kind of losing the point. And Motorhead, I'm sure, they could have adjusted something, or, taken this turn here. And, there's no more marketable rock singer frontman ever than Lemmy. He's instantly, identifiable for most rock and roll fans. The facial hair alone. It's like, some guys would associate it maybe more these days with, 80s, late 80s, early 90s James Hetfield, but he was getting it from Lemmy. He was obviously a huge Motorhead fan as well. And but yeah, the attitude that these guys had, where it was just like they really just were the most authentic band possibly ever. Like they did what they wanted to. There was nobody steering the ship except the guys, which is pretty amazing. Might have been to their detriment in a few times in their career. Maybe if they had pivoted, they could have gotten a lot bigger, whatever the case was. But they just never did, and that's a real testament to the authenticity of the guys in the band. And unfortunately, I never got to see Motorhead in the the heyday, not the heyday, but the 80s. I was too young. The 90s just didn't catch them, and unfortunately, I didn't get to see them until basically the end of their career. It was I was in Germany at the Wacken Festival, and Motorhead was scheduled to play, and they ended up doing a shortened set because of Lemmy's health issues. And if you've been to the festival, it's like the middle of summer, and it's a big open field, and it's 100,000 degrees, and there's only fizzy water to drink. It's it's not like for a young person, it's even difficult to endure, but for him it must have been especially difficult to even get up and perform. But he gave it his best shot. I think they did maybe like 15 or 20 minutes before the set was cut off. And that was my only time ever even catching them. I've seen a million things of them playing live and stuff like that. There's some amazing shows from Hammersmith and all these famous shows. There's hilarious clips of them on Top of the Pops miming along and taking the piss out of everybody there. So, but. Yeah, till the very end, these guys they lived the life, the rock and roll life. Never deviated from it, and I admire that. They always had this kind of like a macho kind of work ethic, and it was like the show was the most important thing, and it never seemed like the lifestyle got in the way of the show and the fans and all that kind of stuff. And I've met a lot of people that have met Lemmy through the years, and some people that have worked with him on his crew, and it's an amazing man to all those people. The stories you hear about him, and you hear a million stories because a million people have met him, but it's always either interesting or it's I think at the end of the day he was a somewhat humble kind of a working class fella, and that came through in the music, and I think that came through in his attitude and all that kind of stuff as well. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about them. I don't need to introduce you to the band. I'm sure you already know, but there's a vast catalog out there to check out, and all three guys now, the three original guys. Phil Taylor was a big inspiration of mine. And he had a certain feel to his drumming, and I'd actually love to kind of sit down and do a longer a video just on Phil and talk about him, because when Mickey D replaced Phil in the early 90s at some point, the feel of the band changed, and it went from this kind of like a swinging kind of like a it had this kind of like a dancey feel almost to the music. And Phil was a very unconventional drummer. It didn't look like he could kind of play like he did, and kind of a little uncoordinated almost looking. But the sound that he managed to get, and the feel in those songs really, really lent to them. And, it's no disrespect to Mickey D. I love Mickey D as well, but when he plays the songs, they're a different version. Mickey is very, like a power straight ahead, just all like an animal, like filthy, they call Phil that, but, Mickey's kind of he's just that style of drummer. He's always been that, like a powerhouse, more or less. And both versions of the band are good, but when it comes to kind of like my preference for listening, it's just like you can't help but listen to these old Motorhead records and kind of feel good. They have this like almost I don't know if Phil was really influenced by Motown or those kind of drummers and stuff like that, but he definitely has a similar feel to some of those drummers. But yeah, one of these days I'll get to doing a video on Phil. But yeah, tribute to these guys. Their music will be around forever, and it's these guys. Everyone's gonna wear a Motorhead T-shirt for the rest of the time too. They might not even know what it means at some point, but that logo and that name across the shirt is gonna be around for a long time. So if you see one of those people walk around with a Motorhead T-shirt, make sure you give them a little smile and a nod to acknowledge, because they're one of the cool people, and they know what's up, and they know where good rock and roll is, and and if they got a stupid beard like this, don't make fun of them too much. They're trying to be cool like Lemmy was, and we all can't do it, but we try. So yeah, so this is the one about Motorhead and the Ace of Spades, and they were Motorhead, and they played rock and roll. Cheers.